Hello, 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 and welcome to Work Should Feel Good, the show where your career growth meets your real life. I'm your host, Diana Alt, and today my guest, Terry Weaver, and I are going to talk about how the world needs your thing and you need the right community to make that thing happen. Terry is a speaker, author, and founder of an event series called The Thing, an event for creatives and entrepreneurs that want to turn big ideas into real results. He's spent over 30 years helping leaders find clarity, take action, and build lives of perfect purpose, impact, and income, working with everyone from solopreneurs to major brands. Terry also hosts the Making Elephants Fly podcast and wrote a book by the same name. He's all about dreaming big, acting bold, and building in community. Welcome to the party, Terry. What's going
Thanks for
on?
having me. It's the Work Should Feel Good podcast. I remember when I tried to talk you into doing this in the year 2000 and I don't know, 9. It seems like.
Not yeah.
And
20.
I'm glad it's been fun to watch this journey get started. And
I think what's really funny about it is that like we talked about podcasting then because you knew I could talk without any problems. But you thought that the phrase work should feel good was non-starter. You did not like it. Do you remember that?
well, just in the I didn't and so your audience knows, I'm so far away removed from employment um that I can't imagine work not feeling good.
That's a bold statement.
I can't I can't fathom a life that I'm not doing something I love,
Yeah.
because
Um,
I have been blessed to be able to build a life around doing the things that I love, working with people I love. That's
yeah.
not to say that, I mean, nobody loves to do their taxes, right? But the majority of the work that I do um, is work I would do if I had won the lottery.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel this I got there. I finally feel the same. I wish more and the whole reason for the show and my business and to some degree your business is to help people do that. So, um I want to wander around like I definitely want to talk a little bit about your career journey, like how you got to where you're going because those stories are always of interest to people. But before we do that, we've said the thing like 40 times already on the show. You have a shirt that has a big yellow logo that says the thing. How on earth did you end up deciding to have an event series that you called the thing?
well, have you ever been going somewhere? It really started as a joke. I mean, full transparency. Anytime we would go somewhere and you'd be on the phone with somebody and be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go do, Bill Smith's thing that he's doing in Denver, and or whatever." It's like, it's that work should feel good thing. I'm gonna go do that, and so it was kind of a label. And as I kind of as you kind of make decisions to brand things a certain way, you sort of realize uh, our, our our friend Angie managed to use everything pun she possibly could in our conversation a few months
Yes.
ago. Um, but then I realized that everyone really does have a thing. They have this everyone I meet, and I live in Nashville, Tennessee, which is a little bit of a weird city because it's kind of a city where people come with a big dream, and it's not just music, um, but it's a lot of people who come here aspiring to do something. I met a couple of weeks ago that moved here just because they're like, man, I want to be near entrepreneur. I want to be around
Mhm.
people who are doing just weird things that other people don't understand.
Yeah.
Um, and they moved here from West Palm Beach, Florida. And so, people just there's a certain reality that we all have this desire to do something. And it's for most people it stays in the back of their head.
Yeah.
And um they kind of stay on a path towards, the
I
illusion.
sometimes say that people's thing gets shooted out of them, like
Yep.
they have something that they wanna do, and I don't know when it starts happening, like, it's a gradual process, though, because I think when you're, like, 6 and you say you wanna be an astronaut, people are like, "You go," like, "You can
Right.
definitely be an astronaut," and then when you're, like, 16 and you have Coke bottle glasses, people are like, "No, you're not gonna be an astronaut anymore." we aren't really sending people to space. It's only on a space station. You can't get through the Air Force because of your eyes. Like, no astronaut for you. And it happens with everything. So we beat it out of people.
Yeah, and we stop there. You're right. There is that childlike wonder, which is one of the reasons. Which, if any of your listeners are actually viewers and seeing the fact that I kind of live in a child playland with full of toys and goofiness and Funko Pops of my heroes.
Yeah.
But one of the weird things behind me on that side is a giant crayon. And I remember reading when Leslie, my wife, was getting her master's degree. I picked up one of the books because she's like, "This is the only book that's been worth reading, so far." And it was this book on leadership, and it told the story of, at the time, the president of the United Way, who kept crayons on her desk, and she kept them there because she used the crayons when she was taking notes for an important meeting, but needed to think through an impossible task, because
Yeah.
the smell of the wax and holding the crayon versus holding a pen activated in her this childlike sense of, I can do anything. And I sometimes describe myself, Diana, as I'm a professional child, because my goal a lot of time is to activate that muscle in your mind.
Yeah.
Um, you've been to the thing as much as anybody else on the planet. And people are always like, why do we go to why is it Disney World? Why is it Disney World? Well, it's a Disney World because if I can get you to stare at a castle and put a Dole Whip in your hand and a turkey leg and make you think like you thought when you were a child, if we can go into a business conference thinking that way, it activates some different things in your mind. And I think anyone that's a coach, anyone that's in sales, anyone that's in business is in the possibility business.
Mm-hmm.
And Walt Disney might be the greatest example of someone who taught what happens when we make the impossible possible.
Yeah,
And
I'm with you on that. And I think that whenever I run across somebody that most doesn't believe that they can do their thing, or most doesn't believe that work can feel good, they have lost the sense of possibility somewhere along the line. And it isn't confined to people who are unemployed or people that maybe have jobs that are on the lower end of the wage scale. Like, I've met people that make $500,000 and more in a corporate job, which is a lot. And they've lost all sense of possibility and sometimes end up trapped because they got the big mortgage and the big private school to go with the big job, and they have no idea how to make a move. Let's go into your origin. So you've been public speaking and communicating since before you could drive a car, if I remember correctly.
legitimately, I actually
Legitimately
got my
before you
driver's
could drive
license
a
pretty
car.
late in high school.
Yeah. And
Um,
so talk a little bit about how you went from, and we don't need all 30 years of all of it, but I'd love to hear how you went from the kid that was speaking in high school to ministry to what the heck you're doing now, because these all seem very disparate, but to me they make sense once I hear
well, I'll kind of do it like on like a. We'll kind of go to the key, like if we were making a timeline
Right.
in 7th grade. So it started with our church. Had a private school. Do not recommend. Um, but it
0 out
also
of 10.
gave me a foundation for what I do now. So maybe I do recommend. But there's definitely some scars and baggage that come with that. But we had this weird thing called a competition, and I entered it one year because I kind of had this sense that I knew I was supposed to be, um, that I was good at talking. As like a
Mhm.
5-year-old, I used to line up my stuffed animals and mimic like Billy Graham and Tony Robbins.
Oh my gosh.
In fact, I still have the Oscar the Grouch that was part of the lineup those days. Um, we had one of those weird 2-seater like lazy boy lean back recliners, and I kind of set them up like they were in an audience in an arena, and I would, I did my thing. And so I was given the chance to do that one time, and people were like, "Whoa," like Doozy, they called me Doogie Howser. And so I realized that I had this gift to communicate, and we had these competitions, and I went to the big one and won the competition. And
it was
like,
speech competition, right? Like
well,
what
it was a
kind
preaching
of
competition.
preaching competition? Okay.
Yeah. And so, and like the president of the school that it was at, freaked out, was like, "Man, you got to come to school here. It's on me, whatever. Just get here." And, I kind of knew that school was wacko and it wasn't really my path. But I began to speak. I had some mentors that kind of like pulled that out of me. And I had a mentor that at the time I had just gotten finished being the chaplain for the University of Alabama football team.
Oh, that's a job.
Yeah. And he knew people that he started referring me and connecting with people, and said, "Hey man, you should go and speak at this thing and this thing, and they would love to have you." And that kind of led to one another. And I realized that there was a kind of a career path there. So I really spent the better part of from like 1996 really until 2012 doing some form of that.
Yeah.
Through that process, I picked up music, because everywhere I would go, I would have a musician with me. And it was weird. One of the guys that had happened to travel with me back in the day was on the national stage this weekend at a huge event, and it was just kind of weird to like see some of the things come full circle. At the time, he was just a kid wearing Wranglers and a cowboy hat. And now he's one of the biggest songwriters in the world, writing with Christian and country artists. And so I did the music thing, and I started realizing that these people needed mentorship, they needed leadership. So we started helping them with the business side of it, because I had kind of figured it out on my own. And so we started booking them shows, and that eventually led us to move to Nashville.
Okay.
And as I'm traveling, every time I'd fly into a city, Diana, I would normally, like, this was back in the day before, this was when you were just, no one was going to buy me a rent a car, so like I'd get picked up by somebody.
Yeah.
And it was normally a youth pastor, and you're going to, some of this will start to show some, it was normally a youth pastor that was miserable in the job they had.
Yeah.
And I'd found myself like trying to like coach them, not knowing I was coaching them, while at the same time, these bands that I was working with, I was building their brand, not knowing I was building their brand. I just kind of accidentally, it accidentally happened. And I think a lot of times we try to do things with great intention, but sometimes opportunity happens just because we're doing stuff.
Yes.
And we're showing
up. That is a really important point right there, because I'm going to rabbit trail for a minute and then get into more what you're doing now. But like, that thing of intentionality can be overdone. And the work that I do is mostly with people who are in corporate America, usually in tech, highly analytical people, and they want, they don't want a map. They want GPS directions, turn left, turn right, have this exact conversation, get this certification. And the more that you fall into that and can't handle the way life like throws you a curveball and you have to recalculate in GPS terms, the more trouble that they have. So
yeah, and I think
that openness is huge.
I think as a coach, I talk a lot about giving people maps, and I say the phrase map because I can't give you like MapQuest directions.
No.
Remember those when we used to print them out, and it was turn by turn, right? Like,
yes,
that those don't, no one can give you that. I can give you like a pirate map, where like, this is where the treasure is. These are the things to avoid. And I don't know what side quests are going to show up along the way.
Yeah.
You and I share an affection for the Kelsey brothers. And I love the day we recorded this, like on Monday Night Football, old Jason Kelsey's in like the Ravens band playing.
I got the chills whenever I saw that.
Well, just because it's funny and it's something he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I almost everything I'm doing in life is because of a side quest.
Yeah.
It's because
Side quests are totally underrated.
I was
So
I have always been curious. I have always kind of explored and realized, like, and then normally looking back, I find that that's how the dots connected.
yeah.
So as we continue this, we moved to Nashville in 2001. Spent a lot of time, you know, helping bands get really successful. Had some guys go on to win, big music awards, Christian music awards. A couple ended up on the Grammy stage, opportunities, and I started to get kind of burnt out on that, mainly because the better the talent, the normally the lower the work ethic was.
Mm.
And the artists that I had that were seeing the most success were not the most talented. They were the ones that were just willing to get dirty and sloppy and work hard.
Yeah.
And at the same time, music was changing. And so I started to kind of study just influence and at the same time, Michael Hyatt was coming out with all of this platform conversation. Blogging was coming about. So I started to blog and started to write about more than just music or faith, and started to write a lot more about business. Doors started to open. Some friends started saying, "Hey, can you help me? You seem to know these things. Can you help me do this?" Helped a friend at the time that I had met on a cruise, and we connected on Twitter. Back in the day before Twitter was a cesspool of craziness, where it was just people talking to each other. Which I kind of wish we could just all go back to talking with each other in general.
Go to Substack. People talk to each other there.
Huh?
Substack notes. People talk to each other there.
And so I began to realize, like, I had some skills that I have a particular set of skills. I began to realize that I did have some skills, and they started to show up in the area of, like, I was having a lot more coaching conversations. And so I was doing a lot more things that looked less like speaking and more like consulting. And I'd opened some weird doors, and I helped some friends make a good bit of money. It was fun. But during that time, I kind of began to get the itch to do my own thing. And I was very hesitant because I didn't think that I had the celebrity power. I've always been very cautious. And you've probably never even heard me talk about this. I've always been very cautious about making anything about me.
Mm-hmm.
And because I don't think it's about me, but there's a certain requirement that all of us have to put ourselves out there in a way as a brand. I've always kind of hidden behind a logo or a brand of something else. And so I began to really let people know, hey, I want to start coaching. I started the very first mastermind group back 10 plus years ago. Our friend Ian, Craig Fraser, and a few of those other crazy friends were in that group. I had no idea what I was doing, but I did it. It was figuring out along the way, learning about it, but yet had a lifetime of experience. And I think, especially for knowing your audience, one of the things that I think people often shortchange themselves on is the knowledge and the wisdom that they've gained from a lifetime of experience.
I think you're so right on that. And what's really interesting about it, one of the things that struck me the most when I first walked into a thing event, which, full disclosure, like the very first thing event I went for Terry was in Orlando. It was in 2020 in November. It had been postponed. It was supposed to be in May, and it got postponed, and like the format totally changed because COVID. And I walk in this room where all these creative entrepreneurs are, and I found out a boatload of them, like a much higher percentage than I expected, actually had a technology background of some kind. So, maybe they're doing art now, or maybe they're doing something with music, or they have a podcast and a leadership book. Like there's all kinds of different things. But on paper, if you look at, here's the business I'm creating, and here's the work that I did for 15 years before I started that business, it doesn't always make sense. But when you strip back, where was the value? For most software engineers, the value isn't their code as much as we think it is. It is, can I untangle a problem? Can I create clarity somewhere? Can I analyze stuff? Can I work with a team? So all those things that are not necessarily what was on the job description you applied for end up being incredibly valuable if you decide to start a thing that has nothing to do with your day job. And if you start a thing that does have to do with your day job, like if you become a freelance consultant and the thing you did is W-2, boom, like the wisdom and experience factor are just that much more. So.
Yeah. Well, one of the processes I've always walked people through when they go to like look at making that leap, right? The leap from like
the leap.
And I always say, like, let's go ahead, because your mind is already going there. Let's just talk about what the worst case scenario is.
Right.
Like, what is the absolute worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to be out there and you're going to fail, right? Okay, so you fail. Well, spoiler alert, you probably could fail at your job. We're in a kind of a culture and a time where there's really not a job market or a industry that's immune to change right now. But when you look at the worst thing, for most people, it's like, worst thing that could happen is you'd have to update your resume.
Right.
And potentially start having conversations.
Right.
But in reality, and I think one of the illusions that people have when they go and like make that leap is they have to go and just do one thing.
Yes.
When I met you, when I first started, when you sat down during 2020 for coaching at my dining room table, you had, what you're doing now looks way different than what you had in mind.
Yeah.
And even at that moment, and even way considerably more than what you had in mind when you quit your job.
When I quit my job, I thought I was going to do technology consulting, which I did for a year and a half. And then I realized I was totally sick of it, which is part of I didn't even realize how sick of it I was. That's part of the reason why I needed to leave. And I abandoned it. So talk about a leap. Like there's leaps to leave W-2, and then there's leaps to make a shift in your business. And I gave up 60%, what had been almost 60% of my revenue in 2020. I just said, I'm not going to do that anymore in 2021. And replaced not all, but most of that income, which was pretty cool. So yeah, it's funny because I feel like the spirit, what's interesting about that story is the spirit of what I was trying to do, or what we were talking about in 2020, is very in line with what I'm doing now. But the details are not. And what I created was better because side quests and discovery and all of those things. So,
and I think one of my favorite, you know me, I love some Andy Stanley quotes, that we need to be stubborn on our vision, but flexible on the details.
Totally agree.
We need to be really stubborn about the things that really, really matter, and then be kind of flexible with how it might play out.
Yeah. And I ask a lot of questions. I keep that kind of thing in mind a lot when I work with people. I have a lot of people that have worked in big tech, and there's a few like online tech career discussion forum things that I spend time in. And one of them is a group for product managers, specifically women in product management. And I'll see people in that group all the time say, I want to get into a FANG organization. If you're not familiar with the term FANG, it stands for Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, like the top 6 or so biggest tech firms. And I always ask, what are you trying to do? Because if they're looking for a culture thing, like those are 6 very different cultures. And really, what people want to do is be in an organization that's big enough to have resources, but innovative enough that they can do cool shit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you know that, you suddenly have broadened everything. You know, you're not going to be in a little startup sitting around like the card table in the garage with Steve Jobs and Woz, but you also know that you don't have to be in one of those 6 companies either. So I think that's a really important point.
It's interesting when you talk about those companies because I'm immediately going in my mind to the people I know that work for some of those organizations, and I know people who were at the, at the 7-figure mark at the G, and people who were at the the bottom lower end at the A, and either of them would give it up in a minute for an opportunity that made them thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
there's
and there are plenty of people that are thriving there.
Yeah,
as
and
well,
they're both actually, and both are one organization. I mean, Amazon's here. When Amazon's doubling down on like in-person work, and like it's probably going to cost them talent. And then like Google has been pretty much like, I mean, Google, anybody that's in Silicon Valley knows that they can't keep the talent there because no one can afford to live there. They've got engineers living in 3-bedroom apartments, 6 up, in their 30s. Like,
Yeah.
and nobody's going to do that for very long. And I think we all kind of get this like almost like vision board look at like how this stuff works, and it never works like how you anticipated it. It never pans out quite how you wanted it, and you have to be willing to go and try and risk and dare. And all of the people that started those organizations, which are those are the people that I'm enamored by, had an incredible sense of like, we've all seen that picture of like Bezos with the Amazon handwritten banner, and
Yes.
we've all seen the commercial with it. All of them started in a garage, and like when you think of those organizations, you think about them at their now, fancy, and like, you think of Google, and you think of a fancy cafeteria and a private chef, but most of them were like having lunch at 7-Eleven and hanging out in a garage with no air conditioning to get started.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be prepared, especially, and I think in the climate of opportunity right now that we have, I think there's a lot of people that are going to win because they were willing to get scrappy, and they weren't afraid. They weren't trying to be fancy. And
I remember when I leaped, because there was a lot of weirds. I was very burned out, had a change in leadership that made me go, this is not good. And I left knowing I was going to leap, and that my desire was to never go back to W-2 if I could avoid it. I still got years to work, but I've avoided it for 6 years. And I remember talking to my mom, and I was very nervous about talking to my mom about it because my mom worked for the same place for decades. She was a teacher. My dad was also a teacher. Right. And they grew up on farms. I mean, I don't think my dad had paychecks from more than like 4 places in his entire 72 years. And my mom, not very many more. And she can worry because that's what moms do. And she just basically said, like, girl, you can't take it with you. And part of the reason that I left is there was a reneged promotion. There were 2 of us on our team that were strung along, told we were going to get promoted at a certain time. And we're killing ourselves for it. And then they said, psych, we're not going to do that. We're only having 1 at that level. You guys are welcome to apply. There's external applications too, which is basically a fuck off to both of us.
Yeah.
Although they did end up hiring the other girl. And I had a conversation with my mom, and I was like, I think I'm going to leave. And here's the situation. And she's like, I think the best thing in the world is that you didn't get promoted. And I was like, say more. She said, you would have stayed there for 3 more years, still miserable, feeling like you owed it to them because you got promoted. And that was like an unlock for me. The decision had been made, but I felt a lot more at peace with the decision to make the leap whenever she said that. So I want to, when you think about where you're at now, how do you actually describe what you do now for people that are working with you?
You know, I think one of the things that I've had to kind of embrace, you know, you and I work in a business that talks a lot about frameworks and modalities and processes. And I realize that I work with a bunch of weirdos that have big visions and don't necessarily know how to build a bridge to get from where the vision is now to where it looks remotely like success to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and obviously one of the first things I typically try to do with people is I want to define what success is.
Yes.
I want to figure out what it means for you to actually win.
Yeah.
Because we can't win a game when we don't know what we're trying to do. And most of us go through life chasing a goalpost that's moving. And so, you know, the problem is a lot of the words that we use to describe the word coach is a great word, but you know, it's a word that's had a lot of abuse.
Yes.
Because I think of myself like a coach, more like a college football coach, pre-NIL. Really looks
Say
at
more about
someone.
that.
Huh?
Say more about how you view yourself as a college football coach.
You know, Alabama football fans are the most obnoxious on the planet. But when you hear Nick Saban talk about how he led students and how he brought greatness out of them and how he taught them how to lead and do more together, I relate way more with that than I do about the modern day coaching conversation about asking people a lot of questions.
I think it's a mix.
Oh, I do too. Because you know, I mean, girl, I ask you a ton of questions.
Yeah.
I'm
I
always
get angry.
I'm always asking you questions, but I'm not asking you questions because I want the answer. I'm
Yes.
asking you questions because I want you to wrestle.
I want people to wrestle. I ask a lot of questions too. And I'm a little, my people tend to want to be a little bit more linear, like they're used to a process. And so what I like to do is be a pattern interrupt that makes them wrestle with stuff, makes them say shit out loud that they've never had the courage to say out loud. And then I have like methods to the madness to bring them closer, but it's not MapQuest.
Right.
It's the pirate map.
And
I think you and I have a lot of similarity in that way.
I've realized that I get a lot of people in triage.
Yes.
And so how I approach you in triage is very different than how I approach you when you come to me and say, this is my plan. I can't say that I've actually had anyone ever come to me and say, this is my neat planned out path. Help me figure it out. Most people come with their hands in their face. Though I'm actually working. I mean, you were on our mastermind call a couple weeks ago when we talked about how I want to begin shifting away from some of those people.
Yeah.
Because there's only so much energy that I have to help that kind of person. And I do know this. When I sit down with really high level people who have it together, they are most able to take advantage of my genius. They are most able to take advantage of the things that I know. Because what I'm best at is when I'm able to just turn the knobs just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm having to
it's like you're running a soundboard.
Yeah. But a lot of times what it looks like I'm doing is the first 9 minutes of an HGTV show where we're slinging sledgehammers and doing a lot of demolition.
Yeah, which is scary as fuck.
Like, because a lot of people come to people like you and I, and what they really need you to do is give them permission to tear down their old life.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's build a new one. And the building a new one, you know, if you've ever watched one of those HGTV shows, there's a lot of steps in that process. And there's a lot of things that are out of my hands.
Yeah.
I can't control that whole process for you. I can't control, you know, there are things that you're actually doing now that you and I talked about you doing 4 or 5 years ago.
Hmm.
But you had to I saw it, but until you saw it, it didn't matter. Until it was something you wanted and you believed. And that's not that you're stubborn, which you might be, but sometimes, Diana, when I think about you and our work that we've done together, you've had but even before we met, you've had more defining moments than anyone I know.
Wow.
You've had moments that other people probably would have like bailed on life. You've
I
had
mean,
more
I did
whys
have
in the
actual
road.
brain surgery this year, so I feel like if I didn't give up on that, I'm doing
Like,
pretty
you've
good.
had more whys in the road than most people in the short period of time right before I know you, and that a lot of people wouldn't have made it through. And that says a lot about you as a person, and it's just how you were raised, right? You were raised by
Farmers and teachers.
Midwest corn-fed folk, you know, with ranch dressing flowing through your veins, and you were going to figure it out. And that might be one of the most powerful skills in life and business, is the ability to power through.
I think it's really interesting because if power through is no longer the language that I use for that, because it sounds so hard. And so much of what has to happen in order to make this stuff work is to take your foot not completely off the gas, but a little bit off the gas and leave a little bit of margin and breathing room. Because if when I think about powering through, I think about going hard all the time.
No, 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 no.
And there's no like space to figure out how to adjust. So
Maybe more like Matthew McConaughey grabbing onto the wheel and
that
going, all right, all right, all right, and like and
yeah.
just riding it out, like, and just holding onto the wheel and knowing on the other side that. And I think that might be really what it is there's been a lot of seasons of unknown,
Yeah.
and you've been okay with that. You've been
Um
antsy about it and worried unnecessary. I mean, I did give you the Miss Overthinker sash that hangs on your wall.
yes. For those of you watching online or anybody that's ever been on a coaching or networking call with me, the yellow Miss Overthinker sash was bestowed by Mr. Terry Weaver.
In 2021 at the thing Orlando.
Yeah.
And but I don't know that you deserve that sash anymore, because I think you've finally gotten to the point where you've been through enough where overthinking isn't necessarily.
I think it used to be an identity and now it's a reminder. So,
Yeah, it's not
um
it's not like, as the kids say, your whole personality anymore.
right. Yeah, for sure. So basically, we've wandered a lot, but Terry you went through public speaking starting when you were a kid. You wandered through the music industry, started helping people with their brands. Now you're helping people with their brands, making the leap, getting organized, drawing pirate maps to the destination they say they want to go. Um, I know that you and I have outlined 3 books. 3? Someday actually I'll write a book. But and they're all timeless. Like one of them we outlined 3 years ago and it'll still hold whenever I finally write it. So that kind of stuff, like pulling people's genius out, is what you do for people. So I have a question that occurred to me this morning. And that I've talked about with some other entrepreneurs, but I don't know if you and I have ever really talked about it. And that is, what are some of the bad reasons to become an entrepreneur that you see from people?
Man. Bad reason would be you're looking for the easy way out.
Yes, I agree. There's really nothing harder than this.
No, it's, and I want to promote. I want to live a life of ease. Like I said, I don't do a lot of things now that I hate. I don't, but that doesn't mean there hasn't been hard work. I mean, heck, I'm trying to sell a live event in 2025, which events used to sell in the early. Everybody that used to buy a ticket in the early bird phase now buys it in the last 2 weeks before an event, which feels like something devised by cardiologists to improve their business plan.
Yeah.
Like, and so, another bad reason is small thinking.
Say more about that.
Because I think in order to really be an entrepreneur, you really have to think impossibly big. That if you just think small, all you're going to do is create another employer that happens to be you.
Well, I'm the worst boss I ever had, so I sign on to that. But I'll say this.
But you've also gotten way better. And maybe you've, there's a song that was big back in the day called The Hard Way, that some people have to learn the hard way. And you've been provided a few hard things to go through that have forced you to rethink some things about work and about work ethic, because, it may be difficult, but it shouldn't be miserable.
No, it shouldn't be miserable. And I want to say something about the thinking big thing, because there are a lot of people that'll listen to this and they will think about, like, when people are in the tech world and they hear entrepreneurship, they often think of being a SaaS founder. That's like a SaaS or an AI SaaS founder. Like, that's a big thing. And so they're thinking, how do I get the venture capital and all of this? And that, if you want to walk down that path, that's fine. That's not the only way to think big, though. So when I want people to think big, or when I'm having conversations like this with people, a lot of times what they want to do is make their life feel bigger and their work feel like it supports that life, instead of the other way around. Like, when all of your life force is supporting your work, that is not a good place to be. No. And I freaking love working. But for about 6 months before I had surgery in August, all I could do was the work that I was obligated to do. Even though I loved it, I was like crashed out every night after I got done coaching people. That is not a way to live. And it's not a way to live if all you can do is go to work, whether it's in your home office or somewhere else, for 5 days a week, and put dinner on the table and take the kids to soccer, and you don't have anything left for yourself to do anything fun.
Absolutely.
So think about what kind of big you want. I tend to think in terms of impact. So
yeah,
I've never wanted to start a large business in terms of employees. Absolutely. I want a lean team that can be in front of a lot of people. That's my take. So
oh yeah, for me, I'm totally
same. You're the same way.
I say think big, but I also, when I've had coaches tell me, you need to build a big. No, I want to build a simple business.
Yeah,
I want to build a business that requires of me to do what I'm great at.
Yeah,
that's what I. But sometimes thinking big looks like it means expecting bigger, other than packing yourself into the cultural norms that everybody else has prescribed.
It may be a little. It's as much think big as it is think different.
Absolutely.
I'm always reminded of the Apple computer with the line that says, like, I want to put a ding in the computer. I want to put a ding in the universe.
Right.
Like, that's what I want to do. I don't care if I don't want 500 people working for me or 50 people. Like, the 5 VAs that I have with a project manager is plenty. But I would like to put a ding in the universe. So when you think about, let's talk about community for a minute. Because, I said in the intro, like, you want to find your thing and you need the community to help you do your thing. What helped you land on community as a vehicle? And what does community mean to you? Because right now there's a lot of people pushing that the idea of community is something that costs $99 a month, and you're going to sell it through a funnel, and you're going to get 500 people to sign up for it. and it turns into something that I don't think is exactly what you're talking about. So talk to us about your view of
And that doesn't mean
community.
it can't play out through that.
It can,
Yes.
but how do you think about community?
So I had a realization that in actually starting a community like that was, I think, 90, I think it was 99. When we started, it was 79, 99, and 129 somewhere. It quickly escalated this project that I was working on for someone else. And I quickly discovered the thing that got people in the door was the content. You know, they wanted to learn how to do the deal, right? They wanted to learn the skills. What they stayed for, what made them never want to leave the product was the community, was the people, was the relationships. And I see that all the time. You know, and curating community is it can be very challenging. I mean, example, we've been in a very volatile here in the United States political climate. So I've been bringing new people to my community as speakers for the thing Orlando coming up. And I've had to pay very close attention to what everybody's been saying online because a lot of people have been going nuts online. And I don't want to expose anybody into my community to like hate and division. And so community is something that is like, I almost look at community like I look at, I just watched the series on David on Amazon, which is a great little series. And I always think of like the castles of that era of like how community is this like a lot of times is this thing that you've put aside where you've kind of walled it off. You've kind of protected against some outside things and against people coming in, you know, with lack of a better phrase, a disease. Because the wrong people in a community can quickly become like a cancer.
Yeah.
And it will quickly spread all over the entire room. And so, you know, I heard the quote, you know, back in the Gulf War about, you know, if you want to go, I think it was Stanley McChrystal that said it, that if you want to go, you know, if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And as I wrote my book, Making Elephants Fly, that Diana had mentioned, it's available at terryweaver.com. I began to realize that was more of a battle cry for my life's work. That when you really truly think of this idea of going far together through the context of the fact that it's an African proverb, of the fact that it's really speaking to the fact that if you're going to survive on the African savanna, the plains of Africa, you know, God bless the plains of Africa, and the rains of Africa, right? But if you're going to survive there, you better not be in the back of the line because there's a lion coming for you.
Yeah.
And the only way, and I've watched way too many nature documentaries, but the key to survival is being in a group, to being around people who will protect you, to being around people who will protect you from yourself. And I think as leaders and entrepreneurs, there's no other species on the planet that needs community more so than human leaders, because there is always someone coming for you. There is always someone coming for your vision. There is always someone trying to attack you. And I'm not talking about like, you know, physical attack, but I'm talking about, you know, there's always,
they're trying to take your market share. They're trying to do something. They're trying to iterate on the next phase of innovation in your world. Like, it's not even malicious necessarily.
Right. But
it's just that other people are moving, so you have to move too.
And there's a lot of distraction, right? There's a lot of things. And that's one of the things I'm trying to communicate really clearly is like, guys, man, I get it. There's a lot going on in the world right now, but we can't do the thing we're designed to do if we get distracted by every little thing out there. You know, and so I think a great community helps you provide some blinders for you.
Yeah.
and not getting too distracted from, because when I look at Diana, I know, and I talk about this all the time in our group meetings and stuff, that I think about the people that don't get helped when Diana doesn't show up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if she's distracted from her mission, she can't do that. And I think, and I've seen community. You've been on both sides of it, of like when life got tough, the people were there for you and you were there for people. You were the first.
Yeah, I've tried to be that. And the other thing that's really wild is the people that show when you're going through it, as the kids say, the people that show up are often a surprise.
Yep.
The people that don't show up are often a surprise.
Correct.
And if you are limited, like, I don't think anybody needs to try to pretend they have 100 best friends. But if you work in like that hyper independent mode that a lot of us try to do, whether it's in business or corporate, not asking for help, all of that kind of stuff, you have a higher risk of exposure because someone that you thought was going to show up did not, either couldn't or chose not to show up. So I experienced that in some really unexpected ways this summer. And it's fine. I'm fine because I had other people. So I can't wait to talk about that at the thing in Orlando. November, what is it? The 14th to 16th? I don't know. I just go to Orlando for a week and we have a conference. Tell the people a little bit about what the thing is, why you created it, what it's like. I'll chime in since I've been to a few of them.
Well, you know, at the end of the day, it's a business conference, right? But I think it's a lot more than that. We've tried to curate a space where there is a balance of great content that's helpful for your business, that's super practical, but also stuff that is encouraging, because this work can get discouraging.
Yeah.
That most of us in reality, you know, got up this morning in our community. You know, we didn't go to a co-working space. You know, I looked at my dogs and walked upstairs to my office, you know, and that was that's my day. And so to have a room full of people, I think one of the things that makes the things the most unique that I love about the thing and who's there is there's a room full of people that are doing stuff that other people told them they couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start to show up around people that it's like, wow, there's somebody, you know, 6 months from now when you get home from the thing, you're able to think back on that space and go, man, there's somebody else that got up and is doing this today.
Yeah, there has to be. There has to be someone.
And you now know their number because you sat with them at lunch.
Yeah.
And you send them a text and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Can you help me through it?
Yeah. And I'm gonna throw, since I've been to so many of the corporate death by PowerPoint conferences. Oh gosh. Where I'm gonna throw a little information at the people so they can see the difference. So there's conferences that I've gone to, especially here in Kansas City in the tech world, that shall remain nameless. But for the most part, it is show up at 8:00, keynote speaker that the place paid a ton of money for, but oftentimes you don't relate to very well. Then there's breakout sessions. There's rubber chicken for lunch. There's more breakout sessions. There's some sort of raffle at the end of the day, and then you leave. And the only time that there is for community is over lunch, if you're lucky and can get through the line. When you go to those, you will meet lovely people. You'll connect to a few of them on LinkedIn. And if you're lucky, you have 1 or 2 people in a 2-day conference that you feel like you met and you can connect with again. And I'm telling y'all, go to those, especially if they're tied to a certification that you need to maintain. Like, get your CEUs, get all your CEUs for like $5.99 of the 2-day conference. Absolutely. But when you're walking into something like The Thing, is very different. The
You may
people
actually walk out with an actual rubber chicken.
I literally,
I
where's
was
my
looking for
rubber
mine.
chicken? It's in the living room. It's in the living room. But there's a whole lot. Yes, people are talking at The Thing, but number one, the speakers are actually good. I like to think that because I am one. But there's a lot of things that are designed to just be a pattern interrupt from your life. And the people that you talk to, you have opportunity to get to know in a deeper way, especially the speakers, because there's no green room. There's no keynote speaker coming in. You actually get excited about what you have to hear. And then, oh, they actually left an hour after the keynote because they had to catch a plane. Like, everyone's there for at least the whole day they're speaking, and they sit right next to the people that paid to be there to learn.
And
And
this
that's
year, even more so. I don't
really
know anyone
beneficial.
right now that's only going to be there the day they're speaking.
That's awesome.
They're almost, and that's the thing when you do something. I mean, this is the 9th year we've done it. And so you eventually start to figure out how to make it better.
Yeah.
And you know what? And let me say this. I feel like everyone that I put on the stage is there because they deeply care about it. You know, most of them are investing their time, energy, and money to be there on their own. Many of our speakers are paid attendees as well. You know, they are registering to be there as well. And so that makes us weird. It's a different approach.
It's a different approach that leads to the kind of ongoing communications that turn into something later. It's not the I'm on the stage and here's my $5,000 offer that you're going to be pressured to buy at the end of it. The other thing I'll say for those people that are considering going to an event like this because they want to figure out their thing or grow their thing is that there's a lot of experiences alongside it. So if you buy a VIP ticket, there's a day at Disney to mess around. You pick a park. Have you picked the park this year? Do you know?
We're going to do something a little this year's providing us because we're later in November than we are.
So
we have something a little merrier than normal to be.
Okay. So they're doing something merry. But in the past, we'd done things like had a VIP tour of all the Disney parks where we got to go hit all the rides that you have to wait like 2 hours in line. But we were at the front of the line. And it was kind of a special experience just to be able to do that with people, see behind the scenes. You don't get that in most environments. So I think
I'm still actually kind of tired from that one. That day was a long day.
That was a very long day,
but amazing. And we try to change it up.
Yeah,
and we try to actually. You heard how I answered Diana's question. That I want there to be elements of surprise for people, so it's a little different. So people don't come expecting. I want to be able to, even someone that's been 7 or 8 times, to interrupt their pattern still.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. We've seen people go, like in my case, I, like a few other people, started in the audience and then ended up becoming a regular speaker on the stage. And there's other people that have done that as well, including episode 16 guest Liz Wilcox, who is our email marketing guru that happens to go on Survivor. She's one of the biggest success stories in the community because she used that event as a jumping off point to create something huge. One of the other things I wanted to ask is you've worked with some brands that are pretty big, like US Postal Service is one of them, and you've worked with other ones. What is something you've noticed about an environment like the USPS, which is as opposite as you can get from being a solopreneur?
Oh gosh.
That actually carries into entrepreneurial life. Like, sometimes people don't realize they're doing some of the same things that behemoth orgs do to themselves.
Well, that was a day one of our attendees and friends, clients, invited me to come speak to the USPS and to spend an afternoon with a bunch of leadership at this arm that he worked with. And wow. Yeah, you guys are about to get something I don't share a lot about. I don't talk a lot about because this is I've never met a more uninspired group of people. Basically the way that culture is set up is you're basically, once you get into that organization, you're just trying to not do something really stupid that's going to get you fired. And you're basically just riding it out until another opportunity that might be better comes along.
Isn't that what entrepreneurs do all the time? Especially service providers. We see
service
that.
providers, right? And
We
so
see it, not everybody, but there's service providers often do this. They will trade their time for money.
Yep.
They will get burned out on what they're doing.
Yep.
And they will be terrified to fire bad clients so that they can make room for good clients. That is the entrepreneurial equivalent of working at the Postal Service, don't you think?
I would agree. And I think culture is an interesting word because we think culture only exists in large organizations. But I create culture every day for myself.
Yeah.
I create an environment in a way that I want to work and how I want to work and what I will allow, what I let happen. And the upside of that piece, right, is like there's always one or two people that are like bright lights in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's always one or two people that have the power to shift the room.
Yep.
Now, it so happened to be the location that I ended up was their headquarters in Compton.
Oh, wow.
And I was there with our buddy McNair, Disney Imagineer. Imagine him and I rolling through Compton in our rent-a-car. Yeah. We were not sipping on gin and juice with Snoop, but we rolled up into the Postal Service, which was like, security. You can imagine a security compound. And a lot of it was just people were just it was a place people worked all over the country, and that's just where they ended up. But there was always a few people that you spot when you get to do those opportunities, that you see that there are people that think and that are different. Another place that I really wasn't working with them, but I was invited to come in and see the environment, was Pixar.
Oh, cool.
Which was opportunity to connect with I was invited to just be a spectator in their culture for a day.
What a cool opportunity.
And eat lunch in their cafeteria and hang out and buy way too many things in their staff gift shop. But just walk around. I got to go see, when I was there, they were making the movie Monsters U. So I got to see some of the animators actually doing that on their screens, which was crazy to see. The guy that I knew there, he showed me this one scene in the movie that happened to be one of my favorite scenes in that movie. And, he had been animating that scene for 13 months. And it runs for, a minute and 9 seconds or whatever. He had spent his last 13 months on a minute and 9 seconds of content. But the environment there was the opposite, right? It looked like literally the animation looked like what would happen if you let the frat house be in charge of the entire college campus. I mean, people's offices
in a good way, guys.
In a good way. But like people's yeah, it wasn't like there were people running around the office topless, but there were people who had literally ripped the ceiling off of their office and built the second floor.
Oh, I remember you telling me about that.
There were people that had arcades in their office, not like sort of arcades, but like an actual, like the scene from Tron, like you opened a door and you walked in Tron. And I think what that speaks of is like, I think it's super important that we create an environment where we can thrive.
Yeah.
And I think whether you're in a day job working 9 to 5, or you're in, a home office, or you're in a cubicle somewhere, bring some joy into your workplace.
Yeah, I'm
Create
with you.
a space that inspires you.
I have some of it behind me, but I have more in front of me where I can see it. I've got Forky. I have the Buddy Christ. I have David from Schitt's Creek. I have a Travis Kelsey pillar candle, like you'd find in a Catholic church. Bunch of Ted Lasso stuff. Savannah Bananas ball. Like I have all those kinds of things.
Half of them are things I've given you.
The little,
Or
some
you've
of them are
acquired
things.
as
I have a
things.
rubber chicken that Terry gave me. Like there's a lot of things that Terry either gave me or he sent a link to Amazon, and I said, "Damn it, you just cost me some money."
Yeah, and who doesn't need a Forky pan, right? Like everybody should have.
I love my Forky pen. Forky
Everybody
makes me
should have it.
happy. Forky is a very important character as far as I'm concerned. So
Well, you know why Forky's super important? The entire time of the movie, Forky believes
he's trash.
He's trash. And so many of us are led to believe that we're disposable in the work we do.
Yes.
Forky may be the best mascot for this podcast because there's a lot of us that go thinking that we've had that moment where we realize how replaceable we are in the work environment. But as humans, we're not replaceable. You may be replaceable in your job, but you are not replaceable on this planet.
No.
And life is too short for you to go through life giving up the things that matter the most to you for people who don't value who you are and what you bring to the table.
And it's especially bad when the person that's not valuing who you are is yourself.
Correct.
I want to transition. I always close the show with a lightning round that may or may not really be a lightning round. I ask a few questions. And then we'll just quickly button up the details on the things. And I know you want to make sure everyone's clear on that since we had kind of a meandering conversation about the thing. So my first question, my favorite question, what is the worst piece of career advice you've ever received?
Just follow the path.
Yeah. Do what you should do. No thanks. What's a personal habit that helps you be successful?
Sometimes pausing before I speak.
It only took me like 40 years to learn that one. I'm still working on it sometimes.
I spend a lot of my life having to be really quick on my feet and having to respond. And as the world gets more wackadoodle every day, sometimes I'm learning that it's just like, that's not worth my energy.
Yeah.
Those people
I say that. And then the other thing that I'll say, especially if it's an online context, like there's banter.
Oh, yeah.
In the comments. I sometimes think if I had never been served this post by the algorithm, would it suffer from me not writing this? And then I delete what I was about to post. So what's something you've changed your mind about recently?
What have I changed my mind about? The only thing I can think about is something is going to hurt because it's kind of funny and it's personal to you. So I thought the Kansas City Chiefs were going to have a great season.
They got 14 more games.
So, but I was hopeful that my boy Trav was going to go out on top, but that's
they got 14 more games.
Yeah, I'm giving you a hard, but I can't think of a lot of, and it's not that I'm not flexible to change my mind. I think I'm just at a place in life where I'm more and more resolved about the things that matter, and I just don't care about the things that I don't care about anymore.
I think that's a really good place to be. So maybe it wasn't recently, but at least your brain got you there.
My brain got me there. That it's just like there's just a lot of things that I don't care. I'm whatever. You do you, boo.
Yeah, I don't have breath in my body for that.
You know, and as a coach, I've had this, and I say this, and people think I'm a smart aleck for saying it, and I probably am. But I get to be wrong about your life, but you don't.
Yes.
You know, and I know my gut pretty well. I'm a chubby fella. I'm pretty right. My intuition is pretty I need to learn to listen to it better for myself often. But I I had somebody come to me with one of those, like, I mean, hey, I know you're about to tell me I told you so. And I'm like, no, listen, bro, that's the last thing I'm going to tell you. Cause you know, you don't need me to tell you I told you so. I'm not that guy, but you know that you should have listened to me 18 months ago, but you didn't want to because
You weren't ready for it.
you couldn't see what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what one of the things that coaching does for us is it provides someone that's able to hold up a mirror that we may not be able to have access to,
Yeah.
or our mirror might be really dirty. And
I think the analogy of a dirty mirror is actually really brilliant. So, okay, we are longer than I meant to be, which is typical for you and I. Tell the people about the thing. I've got the website, the thing live. Tell them about the thing Orlando, which is coming up in mid-November.
November 14th, 15th, and 16th, right on Walt Disney World property.
2025.
2025.
If you listen to this later.
Yeah.
But the thing live is actually
spoiler alert. It's about those same dates next year because we've already confirmed them.
Oh, well, good. But yeah, so 14th through 16th with some VIP stuff before, if you're into
we start
that.
the VIP stuff on Tuesday night with a dinner, and then VVIP day, which is something you've been a part of almost every time, which is a kind of a day where we get in a suite and bring in some food and spend the day just kind of working on whatever anybody really wants to work on in their business.
Wrestling.
Sometimes it's helping somebody start a business. Sometimes it's helping somebody outline the idea for a course or a book or a platform. It's one of the things that I accidentally started doing and realized it was one of the things that I was the best at. I thought that I needed somebody else there to support me in it. And we actually will have a guest this year. But I've realized that one of my things that I'm able to do is really help people discover what is kind of stuck within them that they can't get out.
Yeah. And in that VVIP thing, which is honestly the reason I signed up for my very first thing was to do that. You're getting wisdom from Terry as the lead coach. You're also getting wisdom from the other entrepreneurs in the room. So you can make some pretty big leaps in a short period of time.
Yeah.
And then Thursday, the VIP day at whatever you're doing.
We go to a Disney park. Diana was smart and she said, hey, I want to do VVIP, but I've got to sit out the park day because I'm still know that like my energy won't be back.
And I'm going to New York the weekend before to see Leslie
you're
Odom Jr.
Hamilton theme park.
Yeah.
And so
I want that theme park. Put that in Disney.
Yeah.
So.
I wouldn't. Lin-Manuel is working on some stuff in the parks. I know he's working on a Encanto attraction right now. So
yeah. Well, if you want to attend that, the thing.live is where you go.
We'll just take you to
click on the Orlando one, but he's also does a Nashville one, and if there's ever any other ones on there, you'll find it at the thing.live. If you use the code I'm with Diana, you actually get a discount on any level of ticket that you choose. And I'd love to see you there. So hit me or Terry if you have questions about that. Terry, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
I always love an excuse to nerd out about entrepreneurship and making life and work together with you.
Always fun.
All right.